Haribo, Namaste. My name is Janapati Das, and we are here today for the Bhagavad Gita as it is class. Please accept my respects, everyone. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto my Guru, my spiritual master, Jagat Guru, Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada, and I pray for his continued mercy upon me, that I may be able to adequately transmit the information coming from the Bhagavad Gita as he has taught to me. I'd like to also offer my respectful obeisances to my spiritual grandfather, the translator and purporter upon this Bhagavad Gita as it is, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And as always, we'll start with some hearing and chanting of Krishna's names. So please join along and engage in the transcendental vibrating of mantras. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Karuna Svarupaya Radha Krishna Prastayate Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Karuna Svarupaya Radha Krishna Prastayate Raja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhara Srivasade Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Haribo, Krishna Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Haribo, Krishna Krishna. So we are reading from Transcendental Knowledge, Chapter 4, and we had finished up with a few verses talking about the different energies and divisions of society that were created by Krishna for the benefit of mankind to elevate themselves and get out of the spiritual, get out of the material dimension. And previously we had read this verse about all of them as they surrendered unto me are recorded accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. Stating the fact that Krishna doesn't forcibly make people, there's often this argument by atheists, well, if God is all good and he's created us for a purpose of, loving him and whatnot, why does he not just make it so people follow his will, and why does he make people sin? And the argument is free will. That the living entity has an individual free will, a very minute free will, but you can make a choice, a decision to follow Krishna or not follow Krishna's rules. And according to how much surrender the living entity has, Krishna will reward them accordingly. And so there are rules and regulations and systems, not only in the Vedic system but all across the world, in different with different taboos and traditions and societies, to help elevate the living entity to live a more moral and godly life, more higher purpose life, than to be just purely animalistic. I don't think there's very any society that really is completely base materialistic, except for the Western society, which has basically rejected any kind of real religious path. Anyways, text 14, continuing. Namam karmamni limpanti, name karma faleshvra, iti mam yo bijannati, karma biribna sabadyate, never. Mam, unto me. Karmani, all kinds of work. Limpanti, do effect. Nor. Me, my. Karme fale, in fruitive action. Spra, aspiration. Iti, thus. Mam, unto me. Ya, one who. Abhijananti, does know. Karma bihi, by the reaction of such work. Never does. Saha, he, badhyate, becomes entangled. Translation, text 14. There is no work, this is Krishna speaking to Arjuna, there is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me does not become entangled in the fruitive reactions of work. So we've talked a lot about the different kinds of views of different materialistic men who see God and they think that God is, like an average human. But Krishna here is saying that any kind of activity that Krishna may do in his incarnations, and if he's following as a householder in the houses of all the queens, he followed all the rules and regulations, but there was the things that he did, that there was no work. He's not affected by the laws that emanate from him. So he's not affected by, like the living entity, by the karmic reactions of acting in the material world under false pretense. So nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. So This is stated also in the Svetasvatara Upanishads when it describes the two birds, the super soul as one bird and the living entity, the Jivatma, as the other bird. And the Jivatma is busily aspiring for the fruits of labor, fruits of action, these fruits on the tree. It's eating it very busily and entangled in it. And the other Krishna is the other bird who's waiting patiently for the living entity to realize their the vanity and the uselessness of trying to engage in this activity. So Krishna doesn't aspire for the fruits of action. So this contradicts what Monists will say that Krishna wanted to enjoy his pastimes in the material world and so became a human or became the world. But Krishna, it says right here, does not aspire for fruits of action. It's not interested in any of the material enjoyments of what we aspire in our embodied state. So the one who understands the truth about this, it also doesn't become entangled. So we understand the Krishna, who Krishna is. We aspire for Krishna, not for the fruits of action, nor the work to try to gather these fruits of action. Purport: as there are constitutional laws in the material world stating that the king can do no wrong, and the king is not subjected to the state laws, similarly, the Lord, although he is the creator of this material world, is not affected by the activities of the material world. He creates and remains aloof from the creation, whereas the living entities are entangled in the fruitive results of material activities because of their propensity for lording it over material resources. So we're marginal energy. We're influenced either by Krishna or by Maya Devi. The proprietor of an establishment is not responsible for the right and wrong activities of the workers, but the workers are themselves responsible. So, once again, another argument that says that why does God make bad things happen? It's not because of God. He's not responsible for the things that he provides for the living entities because they don't want to serve him. It's like, you want to go into that, you want to take that, you don't want to serve, and so you are responsible for the activities that you're going to do in this material world. So the karmic reactions are purely our responsibility. It's not God's. God is not responsible for that. The living entities are engaged in their respective activities of sense gratification, and these activities are not ordained by the Lord. For advancement in sense gratification, the living entities are engaged in the work of the world, and they aspire to heavenly happiness after death. It's kind of like the living entities, they see the signs, don't take the road this way, and it's all over. Don't go this way, danger ahead. These are what, Krishna leaves for people, and yet people will still go down and they crash and they burn because they're so engaged in this activity. But they also aspire as well for some material kind of concept of heavenly happiness in heaven too afterwards. The Lord, being full in himself, has no attraction for so-called heavenly happiness. The heavenly demigods are only his engaged servants. Proprietor never desires the low-grade happiness such as workers may desire. He is aloof from the material actions and reactions. For example, the rains are not responsible for different types of vegetation that appear on the earth, although without such rains there is no possibility of vegetative growth. Vedic Smriti confirms this fact as follows: Nimitta matram eva shao Shri Jnanam Sarga Kamani Pradana Karlani Bhuta Yato Vai Srijaya Shaktaya. In the material creations, the Lord is only the supreme cause. The immediate cause is material nature by which the cosmic manifestation is visible. The created beings are of many varieties, such as demigods, human beings, and lower animals, and all of them are subject to the reactions of their past good or bad activities. The Lord only gives them the proper facilities for such activities and the regulations of the modes of nature, but He is never responsible for their past and present activities. In the Vedanta Sutras, it is confirmed that the Lord is never partial to any living entity. The living entity is responsible for his own acts. The Lord only gives him facilities through the agencies of material nature, the external energy. Anyone who is fully conversant with all the intricacies of the law of karma, or fruit of activities, does not become affected by the results of his activities. In other words, the person who understands this transcendental nature of the Lord is an experienced man in Krishna consciousness, and thus he is never subjected to the laws of karma. Because, as stated in the Sri Ishopanishad, he understands that Krishna is the owner and controller of all things animate and inanimate. Everything is owned and controlled by Krishna, and that if he's been given a allotted amount of good or bad karma, that is what he's received because of his karmic reactions. One who does not know the transcendental nature of the Lord, and who thinks that the activities of the Lord are aimed at fruit of results, are the activities of the ordinary living entity, certainly becomes entangled himself in fruit of reaction. But one who knows the supreme truth is a liberated soul fixed in Krishna consciousness. Text 15. Evam gnatva kritvam karma purvarapi mumukshubhi Kuru karmaiva tashmat tvam purvaihi purvataram kritam. Evam, thus, ganatva, knowing well, kritam, performed, karma, work, purvaihi, by past authorities, api, although, mumukshubhi, who attained liberation, kuru, just to perform, karma, prescribed duty, eva, certainly, tasmat, therefore, tvam, you, purvaihi, by the predecessors, purvataram, ancient predecessors, kritam, as performed. Translation: all the liberated souls in ancient time acted with this understanding and so attained liberation. Therefore, as the ancients, you should perform your duty in this divine consciousness. So Krishna is saying that this is a system that was commonly known, and as these people did and how these people acted, and not only to Arjuna but to us currently in this age of Kali, of like chaos, quarrel, confusion, and irreligiosity, we can act despite being born among the lowest Shudras, the society of Shudras, lower than Shudras, in the Western countries, dark United States, that Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada came and brought the torchlight of knowledge to us, that we can act as the liberated souls of ancient time by taking this divine consciousness and applying it in our life. Purport: there are two classes of men. Some of them are full of polluted material things within their hearts, and some of them are materially free. Krishna consciousness is equally beneficial for both of these persons. So Krishna consciousness is truly beyond the religion, but a path for all men, regardless of qualification or sex, age, race, whatever it might be. It's for all people. It's beneficial for all people, even the most sinful people. We cite these examples of, like Jagai and Madai, that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda made the highest devotees. The robbers who tried to rob Lord Nityananda were very fallen souls. They were all very fallen souls. The prostitute, the Krishna, Kubja. These people, they come into contact, they hear the names of Krishna, and they go from the greatest sinners to the most elevated elevated devotees. And a lot of times these people are already ready for this kind of thing, because Lord Jesus Christ, the great Vaishnava, he was preaching to everyone, but the people that really took to heart were, the tax collectors, the prostitutes, the most fallen people, the degraded members of society that people looked down upon. Romans, the Roman soldier that Jesus blessed and saved his son. It's sometimes those so-called religious people puffed up with wealth, like the Pharisees of Jesus' time. They have no vision, spiritual vision at all. They don't feel lower than the straw on the street. They feel above the straw on the street. They feel above the mountains and above other people, and how great I am because I wear this religious cloak, or I'm this kind of leader or whatever. But the beautiful thing of Krishna consciousness is the humility of the recipient. Arjuna had received this information from Krishna in a humble state of mind, and therefore, because he had no envy, was able to understand and apply the spiritual truth. Those who are full of dirty things can take to the line of Krishna consciousness for a gradual cleansing process following the regulative principle of devotional service. And I was one of these fallen souls, drug user, the most degraded slime on the path to hell. And my spiritual master picked me up from the ocean of material life, placed my foot on the path and said, you can walk this direction. And I try to do so as best as I can. I'm not very perfect or very good about it, but I'm very grateful for that opportunity. Those who are already cleansed off of the impurities may continue to act in the same Krishna consciousness so that others may follow their exemplary activities and thereby be benefited. Foolish persons or neophytes in Krishna consciousness often want to retire from activities without having knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Arjuna's desire to retire from activities on the battlefield was not approved by the Lord. One need only know how to act. To retire from the activities of Krishna consciousness and to sit aloof, making a show of Krishna consciousness, is less important than actually engaging in the field of activities for the sake of Krishna. So that's a very important point. A lot of times there are great devotees who are businessmen or politicians or warriors. They do things seemingly in the field of material activities, but for Krishna's sake. Arjuna is here advised to act in Krishna consciousness, following in the footsteps of the Lord's previous disciples, such as the sun god Vivishwan is mentioned here and before. So we have a wonderful disciplical lineage, and we follow in the footsteps of our spiritual masters and the great saints of the past, not trying to imitate, but trying to follow in their footsteps, follow their instructions. The Supreme Lord knows all his past activities as well as those persons who acted in Krishna consciousness in the past. Therefore, he recommends the acts of the sun god who learned this art from the Lord some millions of years before. All such students of Lord Krishna are mentioned here as past liberated persons engaged in the discharge of duties allotted by Krishna. Text 16. Kim karma kim akarmeti kavayopi atra mohita tate karma pravakshyami yajkanatva mokshashe subhat. Kim, what is karma, action? Kim, what is a karma, inaction? Iti, thus. Kavaya, the intelligent. Api, also. Atra, in this matter. Mohitaha, bewildered. Tat, that. Te, unto. Karma, work. Pravakshami, I shall explain. Yat, which. Ganatva, knowing. Moksha be liberated, Ashulbat, from ill fortune. Translation, text 16, even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all sins. And so now Krishna is going to explain a little bit more in depth about karmic reactions. Purport: action in Krishna consciousness has to be executed in accord with the examples of previous bona fide devotees. This is recommended in the 15th verse. Why action should not be independent will be explained in the text to follow. To act in Krishna consciousness, one has to follow the leadership of authorized persons who are in a line of disciplic succession, as explained in the beginning of this chapter. The system of Krishna consciousness was first narrated to the sun god. The sun god explained it to his son Manu. Manu explained it to his son Ishvaku, and the system is current on this earth from that very remote time. Therefore, one has to follow in the footsteps of previous authorities in the line of disciplic succession. So in order to act correctly in the material world, to come back to Krishna, one must have guidance. In other words, this is like this, we say this prayer, I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master saved me by leading me out of the cave of ignorance with this torchlight of knowledge. So he says that the spiritual master in a disciplic lineage tells a person, a disciple, what is right, what is wrong, what to do, how to go, how to act, and the disciple should do it. That's very simple. We do the work, but we are told how to do the work. Otherwise, you have situations which are, unfortunately, in many of the religions where there is no disciplic lineage and people are interpreting the scriptures and the words of the prophets according to whatever consciousness they're in, and what kind of mode of ignorance, mode of passion or ignorance they're in. They have completely erroneous conclusions about what these things mean. That's why you need a living spiritual master to be able to tell you what kind of action to do and what kind of inaction to do. Otherwise, even the most intelligent men will be bewildered regarding the standard actions of Krishna consciousness. For this reason, the Lord decided to instruct Arjuna in Krishna consciousness directly. Because of the direct instruction of the Lord to Arjuna, anyone who follows in the footsteps of Arjuna is certainly not bewildered, because Krishna is the Supreme Lord. He is the source of all Vedic knowledge. He is the source of all the spiritual masters, and the Guru is one. Krishna is the original Guru. It is said that one cannot ascertain the ways of religion simply by imperfect experimental knowledge. So we can't measure, speculate about the absolute truth. This experimental knowledge, empirical science. Actually, the principles of religion can only be laid down by the Lord himself. Dharmam hi shakshad bhagavat planitam. No one can manufacture a religious principle by imperfect speculation. So we have a lot of different kinds of sort of gurus, and they create these religions, and they say whatever, they found some tablets somewhere and they were the chosen one, or some alien told them that they were the chosen one, or gave them some kind of religious text. One must follow in the footsteps of great authorities like Brahma, Shiva, Narada, Manu, Kumara, Kapila, Prahlad, Bhishma, Shukadev Goswami, Maharaj Janaka, etc. So great personalities and kings found in the Srimad Bhagavatam stories. By mental speculation, one cannot ascertain what is religion or self-realization. Therefore, out of causeless mercy to his devotees, the Lord explains directly to Arjuna what action is and what inaction is. Only action performed in Krishna consciousness can deliver a person from the entanglement of material existence. Text 17. Karmano hi api bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha akarmanascha bodhavyam gahanna karmano gati karmana working order. He certainly, api also, bodhavyam should be understood, bodhavyam to be understood, cha also, vikarmana forbidden work, akarmana inaction, cha also, bodhavyam should be understood, gahana very difficult, karmana working order, gati to enter into. Translation, text 17. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand, therefore one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. So, as we've talked about before, karma, the terminology of karma is probably the greatest and most misunderstood things by people. People think of karma as something that you're going to get, or whether what you do. And it is like what Jesus said, as you sow, so shall you reap. But karma itself means action. So the activities. And we have words like akarma and vikarma to go along with it. So in other words, we have forbidden action and inaction, akarma, forbidden action, vikarma. If one is serious about liberation from material bondage, one has to understand the distinctions between action, inaction, and unauthorized action. One has to apply oneself to such an analysis of action, reaction, and perverted actions because it is very difficult subject matter. So when we refer to the word karma, that was usually in relation to the regulations of the Vedic system, that certain kinds of activities were permitted with the understanding that there would be some karmic reaction, but there would be some purification as well. But most of what goes on, if not all, the activities that go on in the modern world is vikarma. It's perverted. It's outside of even the religious texts and rules and regulations. It's very, very grave and dark places that it sends people. To understand Krishna consciousness in action according to the modes, one has to learn one's relationship with the Supreme, i.e., one has to learn perfectly. One who has learned perfectly knows that every living entity is the eternal servitor of the Lord, and that consequently one has to act in Krishna consciousness. The entire Bhagavad Gita is directed towards this conclusion. Any other conclusions against this consciousness and its attendant reactions are vikarmas, or prohibitive actions. To understand all this, one has to associate with authorities in Krishna consciousness and learn the secret from them. This is as good as learning from the Lord directly. Otherwise, even the most intelligent person will be bewildered. And that's why it's said that, the spiritual master brings the torchlight of knowledge, and we are in this cave of darkness in the material world that we cannot find our way through the dark, going around corners and back and through a maze of the material world. But the living entity is approached by the spiritual master, and this living entity approaches the spiritual master, who comes to him within the cave with a torchlight of knowledge and a plan and a way to get out of that crazy cave. Text 18. Karmani akarma yaha pashed karmani cha karma yaha sabudhi manusheshu sa yuktaha krishna karmakrit. Karmani in action, ek karma in action, yaha one who, pashyat observes, a karmani in action, cha also, karma fruit of action. Yah, one who. Sah, he. Buddhiman is intelligent. Manushyashu, in human society. Shaha, he. Yukta is in the transcendental position. Krishna karma krit, although engaged in all activities. Translation: one who sees inaction in action, in action in inaction, is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. So this is one of those wordy things like, what is nighttime for the enlightened souls is daytime for the, what we read earlier, daytime for the fruit of action, fruit of actors. Purport: a person acting in Krishna consciousness is naturally free from the bonds of karma. So even the activities that, it's an action in inaction, you know, it's actually, or is it inaction in action? It's actually doing activities for Krishna is not conducive to receiving karmic reactions for fruitive activities, because you're not doing fruitive activities, you're doing actions in Krishna consciousness. His activities are all performed for Krishna. Therefore, he does not enjoy or suffer any of the effects of work. Consequently, he is intelligent in human society, and even though he is engaged in all sorts of activities for Krishna, a karma means without reaction to work. So there's no reaction to the activities that seemingly might seem like an activity that maybe a materialist or a fruitive actor may be doing the same thing, but they're receiving the fruits, they're eating the fruits for themselves and not offering them to Krishna. So therefore there is a reaction to the killing that goes on involved in that, and which is a lot. The impersonalist ceases fruitive activities out of fear so that the resultant action may not be a stumbling block on the path of self-realization. But the personalist knows rightly his position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the impersonalist may be afraid that if I act in this world, I'll get the results. But the personalist or the devotee of Krishna will actually understand that if I act and do these actions, which I have to do, which is what Krishna is telling Arjuna, you got to kill, but you can fight for me, as a service for me, as an offering to me, without any reaction to that. Whereas another person may be like, I'm just going to kill because I want to enjoy the kingdom. Arjuna wasn't really particularly interested in enjoying the kingdom with his brothers. That's why he brought up this issue with killing people. He wasn't really attached to it, but you could see that it was all part of Krishna's plan. Krishna wanted him to do that. He wanted them to enjoy the kingdom, and when the time came, he would come back to him, his brothers, and just serve and rule the people righteously as a service to Krishna. Not because I'm going to get all the wealth and people are going to be bowing down to me and I'm going to be the main king, or at least the second king to my brother Yudhisthira, and people will admire me. And Arjuna wasn't really, he was a devotee. He wasn't attached to those kind of things. Therefore, he engages himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness because everything is done for Krishna. He enjoys only transcendental happiness in the discharge of this service. Those who are engaged in this process are known to be without desire for personal sense gratification. The sense of eternal servitorship to Krishna makes one immune to all sorts of reactionary elements of work. So more about that was about the karma. That's wonderful. Text 19. Yasha shave shamarama paha. Kama shankalpa varajita Ganagni Dagya Karmam Nam Tamahu Panditam Buddha Yashya, one whose Sarve, all sorts of Samarambaha, in all attempts, Kama, desire for sense gratification, Sankalpa, determination, Varjitaha, are devoid of, Jnana, of perfect knowledge, Agni, fire, Dagda, being burnt by, Karmanam, the performer, Tam, him, Ahu, declare, Panditam, learned, Buddha, those who know. Translation, text 19. One is understood to be in full knowledge whose every act is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker whose fruit of action is burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Such a beautiful verse. And with this idea of fire sacrifice was the offering of things to Krishna, right? In the burning up of the fire. But the fire is very purifying as well. This analogy of fire, this symbolism of fire. So one who is the knowledge, the perfect knowledge, the full knowledge, enables one to understand their purpose of what they're supposed to be doing, and therefore there is no desire other than to that burning up of the desire to enjoy the fruits for your own pleasure, for your own enjoyment, is burnt up in the perfect knowledge received by your spiritual master in Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. The more you engage in the chanting of Krishna's names, it's a fire of perfect knowledge that burns up the desires to be Lord and Master, and leaves open that love and desire to be the servant of Krishna, to give of our life and our time and our activities and our means to Krishna in love, as a love offering. This is the meaning of Bhagavad Gita. Such a wonderful verse. Purport: only a person in full knowledge can understand the activities of a person in Krishna consciousness, because the person in Krishna consciousness is devoid of all kinds of sense gratificatory propensities. It is to be understood that he has burned up the reactions of his work by perfect knowledge of his constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in this burning up of all these desires, and comes the full knowledge that Krishna is the source of all things, that Krishna is our best friend, that Krishna is our ever well-wisher, that Krishna is eternal and ever existing, and that we are eternal and ever existing as their servant, as a servant of Krishna. There's so many realizations that come with that, because we don't have those blockages in our life that are fed and fed by the envy and desire to own and control, the lust that we have from perverted contact with the modes of material nature. He is actually learned who has attained to such perfection of knowledge. Development of this knowledge is of the eternal servitorship of the Lord is compared to fire. Such a fire, once kindled, can burn up all kinds of reactions to work. And there was a really great verse. I'm probably going to share it in the comment. It was something I read by the mystic St. John of the Cross that was kind of remind me of this. And I don't know it off the top of my head because it's on my phone, and my phone is being used to make a video. So I will share it in the comment section later. Okay, we'll read one more verse. Text 20. Tiyaktva karma phala sangam nicha sripto nirashraya karmani abhi pravritopi naiva kinchint karote saha, tavakiva. I feel like I'm saying Russian sometimes with that. Tavakiva. Having given up karma phalas asangam, attachment for fruit of results. Nitya, always. Triptaha, being satisfied. Nirashraya, without any center. Karmani, inactivity. Abhi pravratyaha, being fully engaged. Api, in spite of. Na, does not. Eva, certainly. Kinchit, anything. Korote, do. Saha, he. Translation, text 20. Abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. So the dependency that Krishna, that the living entity has, is completely dependent upon Krishna. So when you say independent, doesn't mean that he's independent of Krishna. It means he's independent of the activities in Maya Devi. Maya Devi's means and ways, the material pollution upon us, the lust and desire to own and control. Purport. The freedom, this freedom from the bondage of actions is possible only in Krishna consciousness when one is doing everything for Krishna. A Krishna conscious person acts out of pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he has no attraction for the results of the action. He is not even attached to his personal maintenance, for everything is left to Krishna, nor is he anxious to secure things, nor to protect things already in his possession. He does his duty to his best ability and leaves everything to Krishna. So Krishna, Yudhishthira was a perfect example of this, a great devotee of Krishna. And although he was the most wealthiest king, emperor, and most powerful emperor, he was not attached to anything but Krishna. And he accepted, just like also the Sridhama Brahman, whether he got the money, he got wealth from Krishna or not, he was not attached to that. He was given it to it. He was grateful for the mercy that Krishna showed to him, and he was able to use it in Krishna's service without being attached to it. But a lot of times that's a challenge, because Jesus would say it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to go to heaven, right? Or to enter the kingdom of heaven, because of their attachments to their wealth and power. Such an unattached person is always freed from the resultant reactions of good and bad. It is as though we're not doing anything. This is a sign of akarma, or actions without fruitive reactions. So that's when we refer to this, that was in a previous verse, a couple verses before. It said, inaction and action and action and inaction. And any other action, therefore, devoid of Krishna consciousness is binding upon the worker, and that is the real aspect of the karma, as explained herein before. So there is a sort of division between what was seen as rules and regulations, regulated activities that were prescribed for people with certain desires. The karma is actually unregulated attachment to material enjoyment and activities. I think we have time for one more verse. Text 21. Nirashir shir yata chitatma tavakta sarva parigraha sariram kevalam karma kurvan napnoti kilbisham. Nirashihi, without desires for the results. Yata, controlled. Chitta atma, mind and intelligence. Tayakta, giving up. Sarva, all. Parigraha, sense of proprietorship over all possessions. Shariram, in keeping body and soul together. Kevalam, only. Karma, work. Kurvan, doing so. Na, never. Abnoti, does not acquire. Kilbisham, sinful reactions. Translation: such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled. So, okay, I'll finish this. Gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. So such a man who's focused on Krishna consciousness, their mind and their intelligence, which are material things, are in control. Without control over our mind and intelligence, the horses go wild on the court, right? We're just all over the place. Purport: a Krishna conscious person does not expect good or bad results in his activities. His mind and intelligence are fully controlled. He knows that he is part and parcel of the Supreme, and therefore the part played by him as a part and parcel of the whole is not by his choice, but is chosen for him by the Supreme, and is done only through his agency. When the hand moves, it does not move out of its own accord, but by the endeavor of the whole body. A Krishna conscious person is always dovetailed with the supreme desire, for he has no desire for personal sense gratification. He moves exactly like a part of a machine. As a machine part requires oiling and cleaning for maintenance, similarly a Krishna conscious man maintains himself by his work just to remain fit for action in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So we should take care of our body and our mind. We're not completely just like giving up on our body. He is therefore immune to all the reactions of his endeavors. Like an animal, he has no proprietorship even over his own body. A cruel proprietor of an animal sometimes kills the animal in his possession, yet the animal does not protest, nor does it have any real independence. A Krishna conscious person fully engaged in self-realization has very little time to falsely possess any material object. For maintaining body and soul, he does not require unfair means of accumulating money. He does not, therefore, become contaminated by such material sins. He is free from all reactions to his actions. So, a lot of times we waste our time trying to over-endeavor for material things, or for, worrying about this and that, these things that I own, these things that I'm trying to own. Even if you get them, how long do you really have them in this life? And then once you've lost them, what is the, as Jesus would say, what benefits a man who gains the whole world but loses his soul? Anyway, wonderful. We'll continue on next time with text 22. That was really wonderful. Thank you very much. Haribol.